Good day, beautiful, bountiful, beloved immortal beings, and good-looking people. Now remember, you're good-looking because you're always looking for and finding the good. You're going to find good in abundance. It's going to be rocking your world when you meet one of the most interesting, fascinating, loving people named Kim in just a couple of minutes. So welcome to Eye on Las Vegas with your humble host, Barry Shore, the ambassador of joy. Notice I didn't say the ambassador of joy, the ambassador of joy. And you know that on this show, we bring to you some of the most interesting people and ideas in the world, because that's what Las Vegas is really about. So I live now in a place called Henderson, Nevada, just outside of Las Vegas, and I am privileged to speak to, well, right now there are 520 plus thousand people around the world who tune in. And I thank you because you're always urging your family and friends to listen to the podcast because it's electric and it's energizing. And I urge you, share this with 5 people. You want to share it with 50 or 100? Great. But share with 5 people. We can touch 2.5 million people around the world with ideas that make a difference. We make an impact. So I live in this place called Henderson, right outside of Las Vegas Strip. Whenever I mention Las Vegas, people lean in, open their eyes and their ears and say, tell me more. Because it's not just about sex and gambling. It's about stuff happening here that's so good. I want to say one data point before we bring on amazing Kim. If you take the entire population of New York and all the people live around it, the entire population of Chicago, all the people around it, the entire population of Los Angeles and all the people live around it, and add in the entire population of the state of Florida, you don't get the number of people that come to Las Vegas in a year. 41 million people come here. Why? Because there's stuff happening here. It's a place of consequence, impact, and goodness in reality. And that's why we're a privilege and honored to have with us wonderful, amazing Kim Downey. Kim, please say hello to 523,911 people around the world.
Hello, and thank you for having me. I really appreciate this opportunity.
Well, we're just glad to have you. If I started telling people all the things you've accomplished, we'll take the rest of the show. I'm going to give 2 data points, maybe 3, and then we're going to just jump right in. If those of you who are watching are privileged to see an amazing, bountiful, beautiful woman with an expressive face and great eyes and teeth, and she's a cancer survivor from 3 times. Number 2, she used the difficulties of the cancer process to do something positive in the world because she recognized that doctors, yes, doctors are under remarkable stress and strain and difficulty, and the suicide rate for doctors is high. And Kim said, you know something? I'm going to do something about it. Wow! So just jump right in, Kim. Let's start with the stuff that really rocks people and just makes them crazy because they say, what are you talking about? A cancer survivor 3 times? Tell us the story, please.
Sure. So I'm a pediatric physical therapist by training, and I was working in a local elementary school, and I was diagnosed with thyroid cancer. So I had surgery for that in November 2020. Unfortunately, I had a complication from that surgery that led to more complications and scans and tests. And I was still recovering from some of those things the following year when I was diagnosed with breast cancer. So I had surgery and radiation for that. And then as soon as I finished that treatment, I was diagnosed with breast cancer on the other side. So I had surgery and radiation for that. So it was 2 years of constant medical issues where I kept thinking one more thing and I'll be done. One more thing and I'll get back to my regular life. And I had developed a friendly relationship with my radiologist. He had performed a couple feats of miraculous technical skill on me, which I share in a Kevin MD article, which is a tribute to him, which I can share with you later. And so I went for what I thought would finally be a routine imaging visit. And he wasn't there. And I asked where he was, and they said he died a month ago. And I was in shock. I was like, are you joking? And they said no. And I asked what happened. And they said they didn't know. And in my heart in that moment, I just knew that he had died by suicide. And sadly, I came to know that that was the case. and I couldn't stop crying. I couldn't stop shaking. My arms and legs went numb, and I felt a calling to support doctors.
Okay,
So,
I want to put you on
yeah.
pause for a moment because I'm crying and I'm shaking. And I think people are leaning in. So, a couple of points. Number one, don't write anything down. Everything you want to know about Kim and what she's doing in her newsletter and such, because it's really important. It's in the show notes. So just lean in and listen and experience this. I want to go back. The radiologist that took care of you and then took his life, how old was he?
60.
So, in our world, a young man. And you knew him well in the sense that upbeat, pleasant, never showed signs of any kind of mental depression, right? When he was around you.
Right. Well, and I had only known him for a 6 month period. So, in a sense, I had only talked to him on the phone 3 times and met him 3 times. But the last time I saw him, he was like, "You need a hug." And he gave me a hug. And then
Wait
the
a minute.
last
He
time I,
gave you the hug. You need a hug. He gave you the hug, not the other way around. This was a man of giving.
yeah. And then the last time I talked to him on the phone, I sent him a thank you note after a successful surgery. And he called me to thank me for my thank you note. And he said, "Patients like you are the reason I continue to do this. I'm sorry you're going through all this, but I'm looking forward to seeing you again." And I told him I was looking forward to seeing him again too.
And we didn't.
Right.
Okay, so this did something for you to get you out of your comfort zone. Look, let's be blunt. You went through 2 years of medical hell. I'm saying it.
During the pandemic.
Well, I was going to ask you, did it complicate the issues because of the pandemic?
In ways you could imagine and in ways you can't. I spent hours on the phone because every place was short staffed, and to make appointments for the doctors and the tests, and then even getting all the COVID tests that I had to have and getting my temperature checked. And because of the complication, I had blood work 100 times. So it basically complicated pretty much every encounter. I don't recommend it.
Well, I want to make a bold statement. People who watch and listen to Eye on Las Vegas, I'm happy to tell you, many of them across over, they listen also to The Joy of Living. It's another podcast that we have. And people know the story of Barry Shore, that Barry was standing up in the morning, that's me, completely healthy and hearty, able to leave tall buildings in a single bound, in the evening in the hospital, totally, completely paralyzed because of a rare disease which never heard of the day before, and I could only communicate by blinking my eyes. Now, it wasn't during COVID, and there were complications. However, I can't even I can't really understand what it was like for you to go through, and with your cheery disposition, and use these 2 years of really medical hell, because you're only there for one thing. I need to be cured. And the staff in American hospitals, at least, are there for one reason. We're here to help you, right? So everybody wanted, and yet it was complicated by the greatest disease that was worldwide. Everybody's listening, by the way. We have people listening from Baluchistan, from Pakistan, from the Congo. Roger. So everybody knows about the pandemic. It wasn't localized to America. So people understand that this was difficult. And to be able to go through that, I'm going to say something amazing, Kim. For me, I came out stronger because of a mission that I have. You came out stronger now because of a mission you have. So let's begin to talk about the mission of Kim.
Sure. So I ended up founding Stand Up for Doctors, and the 4 is in parentheses, and there's an exclamation mark at the end because I like to be passionate about things as the way you do. So I have a podcast and a book series and a Substack newsletter, and I'm planning a physician retreat. And when I'm interviewing or speaking with doctors, I'm sharing with them that, speak up, doctors, raise your voice. That's the stand up doctors. We need to hear from you. And when I'm communicating with other people, I'm trying to help them understand why we need to stand up for doctors, and that the future of medicine depends on the well-being of doctors and our healthcare workers.
So I'm going to begin to unpack a few things as we continue this. Let's be blunt. When people hear the word doctor, they tend to think of rich, a deist complex. They know everything. They're the best, the smartest, and they are not affected by things that mere mortals are affected by. Mm-hmm. And yet Kim found out by doing research, starting this process, that the suicide rate for doctors, I'm going to ask you, does it approach that of people who have been through battle war situations like PTSD, and first responders and police and fire people? In other words, people in the ultimate stress jobs. The doctors are in the category of that's the percentage of suicide rates also?
Right, yes. And while we don't have updated statistics, what the statistic that is tend to use is at least 300 to 400 doctors a year die by suicide. So that's approximately one a day, which is higher than the average population. And we think that that's probably underreported, because sometimes the family might choose not to share that, or the way they die isn't obvious or identified as a suicide.
This is jaw-dropping and hard to understand, because like I said, let's go back. When people hear the word doctor, they think, well, by definition, these are the smartest, most wonderful, giving people in the world. And yet, I think I'm going to ask a question and make a statement at the same time. I believe that medical school, which is rigorous beyond understanding. I mean, it's not just it's medical school, it's residency, and then it's working in the profession. So the stress on people, the hours, the difficulty, because people's lives depend on doctors, is when you're in medical school, not only do you not get counseled about this, it's probably never even discussed. Is that fair to say?
Yes, I think now it's changing in some medical schools, but exactly to your point, the culture of medicine needs to change, and it needs to start in medical school, because there are some, especially residencies, that are actually toxic environments for the students. And sometimes even if a resident wishes to speak up, because sometimes they're belittled, by, their professors or attendings, and they think, well, that's what made me the doctor I am, right? Or I went through it, you can go through it too. And if someone tries to speak up about that, they're told not to, because there would be gaslighting, and then that resident could be seen, or med student even, as the problem, because they want to protect the ones that are either bringing in money or higher power. So that's quite a problem.
Okay, we have so much more to discuss. People are leaning in and say, wow, this is amazing. I never even thought about this. We have people that love our show, sponsors. We wouldn't have them on if we didn't think they're worthy of your time and attention. Don't go away. We'll be right back with more Kim Downey, because this is riveting. Be right back. Good day, beautiful, bountiful, beloved, immortal beings, and good-looking people. Remember, you're good-looking because you're always looking for and finding the good. We found good in abundance. Her name is Kim Downey. Our cup runneth over with good, and she is shaking our world because she's telling us that doctors are human. Now, let's discuss what we just left everybody with, what I call the rite of passage. That's RITE. So you mentioned that, say, a resident, be it a man or a woman, they work 14, 18, 24-hour shifts oftentimes. I mean, it's really, and it doesn't happen once in a while. During residency for at least a year or two, sometimes 3. And if people were to speak, first it would be seen as a complaint, number one. Number two, like you said, every other doctor says, well, this is how I did it. You can do it. And if you can't, get out of here. I mean, that's the attitude, right? That's the culture. And it becomes a toxic culture. And then, as you said so brilliantly, Kim, remember, our profession is about making money. If you step out of line, you're not a good money maker for us. And that person is marked troublemaker. Is that correct?
Sometimes that happens, yes. And even when you're attending, we're not even talking. It can happen at any stage of your career, med student, residency, fellowship, or attending, unfortunately.
So let's talk about the medical profession. And then I'm going to talk about, you can't have any kind of show or discussion with any other person without mentioning AI. So we will in just a moment. However, so I'll tell you a quick story. I'm blessed to have a number of people in my family who are doctors. More importantly, right now, my niece, who I love dearly, is a physician's assistant. PA, assistant. And I can tell you something. She told me about the stress that she had and went through and such like that. And obviously not the same kind of hours. However, the ability to be in a surgical theater and to be administering anesthesia, I mean, whatever it is, radiology, and in any profession, it's the highest of all callings because you're the doctor. Therefore, you must cure me. And therefore, you're as close to God as possible. And what happens is what's called the deist complex. So doctors tend to think of themselves, because they're told by everybody, you're godlike. And as the famous line goes, surgeons know it. Right? Doctors think it, surgeons know it. Let's talk about surgeons and such, because you were operated on many times. Surgeons are not just godlike, they think they are. And I'm not talking about men and women. Am I correct on this?
Some, but what might surprise you is there's also a huge sense of imposter syndrome in doctors.
I was hoping you'd say that, please. Okay, because when you're on the pedestal, well, you've been put there, not that you got there, right? And that's the imposter syndrome.
Right. And that sometimes they feel that they're not good enough, or as you said, so my friend Pat Dunstan, who was a nurse and then became a lawyer and had to leave because she got Parkinson's, she had shared with me that doctors are expected to be superhuman and not complain because of their salary. Many people don't have empathy for them because they think a doctor's life would be the ultimate. Meanwhile, they have so much responsibility and so little control. So sometimes if they experience, they're trying to help people, and if there's a complication, and then they think, I'm not good enough, and there's so many things swirling in their head.
Well, let's talk about an amazing idea that exists for people on the highest level of success in any profession. And it's this: asking for help, especially in medical school and lawyers. So I call it doctors, lawyers, and Indian chiefs. However, what happens is in culture is things trickle down, or they trickle. And that culture of if the pyramid of success is this, in other words, superhuman, therefore feelings get suppressed. And the inability to ask for help because it's seen as weakness. Is that right?
Absolutely, to all of that. The doctors are told to put your head down and just keep going. Any sign of vulnerability is seen as a sign of weakness, and they aren't taught to ask for help, or that asking for help is okay. But when you're feeling really low, that's exactly what you need to do. And so many doctors are walking around thinking it's just me, I'm the only one struggling. But sadly, so many doctors have told me that I want to tell them it's not just you. A lot of doctors are walking around, and also you're never alone. There's people that want to help and support you, and that there's always a path forward.
Woo! We love Kim. Again, out of the ashes of difficulties rises the phoenix of you bringing light and help to doctors. So you have the organization called Stand Up for Doctors, exclamation point. And the newsletter. Again, all of this is in the show notes, and I speak about it, emphasize it, because what everybody knows doctors. And if you really know doctors and you even like them and sometimes love them, you want to share Kim's newsletter, Kim's advice, listen to the podcast, because here, we're not just here to help, which is critical. We're here to save lives. The way to save lives is to begin to understand, as you said so eloquently, Kim, you're never alone. Even though you seem to look like you're alone because you're at the top of the mountain, you're the pinnacle of success. You're a doctor, a male doctor, a female doctor, a minority doctor, whatever you want to call you. Doctor, my gosh, there's nothing. Look, I'm just going to tell you a quick story. I'm Jewish, and in the Jewish world, of course, there's a very famous joke. We won't go the whole joke. So it's the president of the United States gets elected, of course, and he happens to be Jewish, and his mother was invited to the what do you call it, the inauguration, and she's sitting next to somebody, and the person said, "You must be so proud. Your son is the president," and she says, "Yes, but he's not a doctor." It's a very famous Jewish.
Okay. Wow.
And then she adds, and his brother's a doctor. President of the United States, but doctor. Okay, so Kim, you're an amazing, powerful, wonderful woman. Tell us about some of your successes.
Well, so speaking to when I started the podcast and was interviewing doctors, about a little over a year after I started that, we reached out to the first 15 doctors who were guests, and we wrote this book, White Coats, Courageous Hearts, and it's true stories of doctors reclaiming their humanity in a system that challenges it. And Kevin MD writes the endorsement on the back. So I was so happy and proud that 15 doctors were willing to be vulnerable and share their stories. So when their colleagues read these stories, they'll realize they aren't alone. They'll see pieces of themselves. And when other people read these stories, they'll see the humanity in doctors. And because there were many more stories to tell, we came out with a second book a few months ago, White Coats, Human Hearts. True stories of healing, belonging, and the courage to stay human in medicine. And what I love about this one is we also incorporated the voices of physician spouses and patients, because a medicine is a life of sacrifice for the whole family. We need to hear from the families and also from grateful patients.
Well, I am a grateful patient. I've been involved with the medical world for a number of years, because when you become paralyzed, you need a lot of help. And this is so critical and important when you just talked about. Again, let's talk about AI just for a moment, because AI, you got to hear Barry Shaw's definition. AI means always improving. Okay. Some people call it artificial intelligence. It's always improving. That's the essence of AI. Let's talk about what really goes on in the reality of a doctor's life, a physician's life, because oftentimes there is a spouse or a significant other. Oftentimes there's family. Oftentimes, and by definition has to be, the doctor is part of an office culture. And that could be everything from the person who handles appointments and answers phone and stuff like that, to the doctor, him or herself, and the people in between, because it's a business. It's a large business. And everybody needs to contribute. And if you're having a doctor who's the center of the business, Well, if that person is wavering and finding difficulty, that affects numerous people. So I'm hoping that in white coats, in the stories and others and such like that, people share that you could have, again, an office is functioning. It can have 3 doctors in an office, and you can have 20 staff, and one of the doctors has a real problem, doesn't talk about it, and let's say leaves us with suicide, that office can be shut down. You can have dozens of families affected. And it's all because got to ask for help.
Absolutely. And Dr. David Alfrey is a retired anesthesiologist, and he wrote a chapter in our first book about substance use disorder and anesthesiologists, highlighting risks for all doctors because they're around those substances all day long. And if you're struggling or have trauma or anything comes up in your life, then if you have to leave, you can't just be like, for me as a physical therapist in my years, I've worked with premature babies in the neonatal intensive care unit, and I've worked with 100+ year olds in a nursing home. So I was able to transition to different settings, a hospital, schools. When you're a doctor, when you're get even assigned that for residency, it's where you match. So say you always wanted to be a dermatologist, but then you match with primary care. You don't get to be a dermatologist, right? So then even then that can be huge. But say you get to be an anesthesiologist and you're struggling, and the rate of recovery is very high. There's programs so you can recover. But like if you're if you suffer from alcoholism, you try to stay away from alcohol. But if you're an anesthesiologist, you can't stay away from anesthesia drugs, but to do another specialty, you can't just say, well, I'll be a pediatrician instead. You would have to do another residency where doctors can be in debt from med school and residency, hundreds of thousands for years. And that's not practical.
Kim, this is so enlightening and enlivening. I'm just going to tell you one quick story, and then I'm going to ask you a couple questions. I just read recently there was a wonderful woman. Her name escapes me at the moment. Her husband, they were enormously wealthy. Her husband left her $1 billion. And he says, I trust you to do the right thing with you. May have heard this story, seen it recently. Yeah. She was involved with NYU Medical School for many, many years. She was a teacher there, et cetera, et cetera. Again, sweet, wonderful people, have to be Jewish. And she decided with her money, because she saw doctors coming out with $200,000 in debt, that she was going to donate this money, the $1 billion, so that every person graduating, becoming a doctor, would be debt-free. What a difference in terms of outlook, the ability to not have that burden. And why not have that as part of our culture? That's a question we can't answer now, because I'm sorry to say we're coming to a close on our time together at this time. I have 3 quick questions for you, wonderful Kim, and I really want to discuss Connecticut, but we'll talk another bit. Are you ready? Here are my 3 questions. Number 1, Kim Downey, will you come back again?
Absolutely.
Woo! Thank you. Kim, you have only 80 seconds to answer this question. What is your most fervent desire in life?
Well, to make a difference in supporting doctors. If I can make it so one doctor doesn't take their own life or feels better or gets help, that would be what I would hope for.
So we're going to call Kim a mad woman. Because MAD stands for make a difference. And Kim, your name stands for KIM, kindness inspires madness.
Okay, love
it. Or meaning, in this case, meaning. Okay, number 3, may I give you a hug in front of 529,011 people around the world? You ready? Let me tell you what HUG stands for. Heartfelt, unlimited giving. 1, 2, 3. Remember, you're listening to Eye on Las Vegas with your humble host, Barry Shore, the ambassador of joy. Amazing, wonderful Kim Downey. Stand up for doctors, exclamation mark. It's all in the show notes. And with a blessing from Kim and Barry. Go forth. Live exuberantly. Spread the seeds of joy, happiness, peace, and love. Go mad. Go make a difference. Kim, don't go away.